So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where the United States forms an empire. Now, I have done this video before, but it was not like how I do my traditional empire videos. In that video, it was more of we went back in time and made the US into an empire, but now we're going to be going for modern day and making the United States into an empire. So if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you are new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we're trying to hit 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And yeah, let's go ahead and just jump straight into this video. Also, sorry to interrupt, I just said we're going to get into the video, but I'm doing a stream tonight and tomorrow night, Friday and Saturday, on my second streaming channel, AdizzPro, should be slipping on the screen now. Go subscribe to that, check it out, and yeah, let's get into the actual video now. Alright, so the United States of America, the strongest country in the world. And yeah, them forming an empire is going to be pretty easy for themselves, but we will try to make this interesting. All right, so here we have the USA, and their first target, of course, is going to be Mexico. You thought I was going to say Canada because I scrolled up to Canada. Well, you are wrong because Mexico is the bigger issue for the United States right now. Not saying that the Canadians have an issue with the Americans, but Mexico and the US do have an issue, and that, of course, is the border issue. Thanks to the United States government, Congress specifically, for not being able to do anything about this. You know, there's been legislation to fix it, but they don't want to pass it. I'm not going to get political. Anyway, so Texas, already having their National Guard on the border for whatever reason, is going to go ahead and send their troops down into Mexico. They are now fulfilling the white conservatives' dreams of invading Mexico. I said I wouldn't get political. Mexico then invades California. Once again, I won't get political. But this little invasion does not go well because San Diego is right here. And the United States is obviously not going to want to lose that. So Mexico is kicked right back out of the United States. And from here, we have what is basically just, well, murder. Mexico does not stand much of a chance against the United States. Now, it would be interesting to see how the good old cartel would respond to this. I'm sure they wouldn't do anything. That's being realistic. Why invade the United States with your drugs when you are already in the United States with your drugs, right? So in a way, they're helping out the United States, but not to the United States is like, they don't want them to do that. But yeah, Baja California falls over completely, and we've seen this invasion 100 times. You guys know what happens next. The US lands in the Yucatan Peninsula and starts going off. Additionally, they make a deal with Belize to essentially ally with them, and they use Belize as a station to move their troops to, boats from, etc., airplanes, stuff like that. And they invade into the southern part of Mexico with the help of Belize. Now, I'm not sure what Belize is going to do because since they're a pretty peaceful country, you know, touristy, not very notable for much else. JK, Belize, I love you. Actually, if I were, okay, let's go off topic. I've been to the Caribbean, but I haven't been to any of Central America. If I were to go to a Central American country, it would probably be Costa Rica, and then it would be Belize. So Belize is up there in my top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Central American countries. That's a fun fact. Anyway, back over to Mexico. Well, they are not Mexicoing. That doesn't make sense. They're not winning. The US is basically just going right through Mexico. Now, the Mexican army is capable of defending itself, but just not from the United States. And, well, this doesn't end well. Well. Now the United States goes down the western coast of Mexico, and from here Mexico starts to basically collapse as its economy cannot keep up with the war demand. Also, you know, the US is a big trading partner with Mexico, so not having that option anymore kind of sucks for them. Eventually people start to kind of, you know, go against the government, and it was never good to begin with. Mexico isn't necessarily a safe or stable country for that matter. But after the fall of Mexico City, Mexico itself surrenders, and we get ourselves the first peace treaty of this video. Alrighty, in this peace treaty here, we see that Mexico gets itself, well, they lose a lot of land. It happens every time the US and Mexico go to war. It doesn't end well for Mexico. I don't think they've ever won. And obviously it doesn't go well here. They lose a lot of land. A new pro-US government is set up in Mexico City. And from here, the US's influence is rapidly expanding. Of course, the US already has full influence over South America and the Americas, but it is now growing even more. And of course, they also added an ally in Belize. Speaking of allies, they also ally with Costa Rica, which is kind of realistic, as well as Panama. And now we have the United States declaring war on Guatemala. US troops that were stationed in Belize now go into the Central American country. They cut off all coastal access with the Atlantic, leaving them to the Pacific. However, that doesn't last long as American troops spearhead through the country and also take over their Pacific coast, basically crippling it economically. And from here, Guatemala collapses, aka surrenders. And in this peace treaty here, the US actually gives over northern Guatemala to Belize, and for the southern half, they take for themselves. So now they give themselves kind of a weird little situation where they have land over here, but the only way they can get there is from like the southern Baja and go around, which is not very convenient. What would be more convenient though is going through the Atlantic, where of course they have a monopoly on shoreline. So how do we fix that? Well, we go to war with Honduras and El Salvador at the same time. Of course, these two countries could never work together. So this is the United States being smart here, because they're obviously not going to fight hand to hand. So they just go after both. And as we know, the United States, the strongest country in the world, these countries not so strong at all. How does it end? Well, it ends with the US Americans, fat burger people, they win. I'm sure the world is happy about this. Anyway, peace treaty time. Alright, so at this point, the intentions of the United States are pretty clear. They are looking to form themselves a giant empire, and the world is not so happy about this. I mean, obviously Europe is not going to say anything because they need the United States, but China, you know, China, India, Russia, the Middle East, some of the more powerful non-Western line countries are going to start to speak out. Even Brazil does, Indonesia, Pakistan. I imagine South Korea, Japan, they stay silent, but of course you're going to get criticism from Iran, countries like Egypt, Turkey, Hungary, countries that are kind of like in between as well. And they're also going to question Costa Rica and Panama, who are seemingly neutral countries. Belize, not so much anymore. They kind of taste the blood and now they're going ham. But these two countries are, you know, they're not going to do anything. So they get questioned, and basically what they say is they join the alliance for the defense of their nations, and they have the US as kind of like their big protector, because obviously the US is going after Central America right now, and they don't want to get invaded. Costa Rica wouldn't even be able to be invaded. And I'm pretty sure these two countries are already defended by the US in real life with active personnel. So yeah, they kind of have to join, otherwise Costa Rica would get invaded anyway. Better to be a part of the empire than consumed by the empire, right? Just ask Nicaragua. Now Nicaragua is going to be a little bit different. They're going to get supplies and troops from other countries like Russia and China. These troops are volunteer troops, so this doesn't mean a war with China or Russia, but it does mean a harder front line for the Americans to fight. Thankfully though, they are able to blow up any volunteer ships that come near Nicaragua, because once again, they have complete control over this region. The invasion is slower, but it isn't necessarily like any worse for the Americans, and eventually they win. In this peace deal here, we have the US, of course, fully annexing all of Nicaragua for themselves, expanding their empire once more. Now do remember, Costa Rica is only in this alliance for defense, so they will not be getting any land. Now the US has reached all the way down to South America. Of course they already were because of Panama. There isn't any land left in Central America for them to take. So, you know, they could go after South America, but fortunately for them, Colombia just signed into their alliance, so they're not going to be going after Colombia. However, if you look a little north here, you see the Caribbean islands and you see a lot of opportunity, such as the communist country of Cuba, the not so communist country of Jamaica, the barely country of Haiti, and the country of the Dominican Republic, and the tourist spot of the Bahamas. What's more American than taking on a communist country, am I right? So they declare war on Cuba, and this goes about as well as you would think. Cuba is then integrated into the United States, probably becoming a state. Now, as for, of course, this land over here, it was probably made into different states. I mean, not immediately, because they would have to assimilate it, you know, calm down all the rebellious tensions that the citizens would have, if any. And then they would make them into states a couple years later, maybe a decade or two later. I don't think the Yucatan area gets made into a state. This obviously doesn't get made into well, it might get made into a state. I don't know, actually. Cuba would most likely get made into a state because of the vast population there. I think it would probably be America's most populated state, am I right? Population of Cuba, 11. Oh, that's not as much as I thought it was. So no, it wouldn't be. In fact, it would be middle of the pack in population. So yeah, they would be made into a state. I'm assuming Puerto Rico would also get made into a state at this point because of the vast amount of expanding that the Americans are doing. All right, so now the US will go after the Bahamas, and honestly, I mean, is there really a point in me drawing this? There isn't. I'm not gonna draw it. Similarly with Haiti, I mean, you guys know what's gonna happen here. So let's just color all these countries in and get to the more interesting countries. Now, they could have made some of these guys into allies, like the Dominican Republic or Haiti or even Jamaica. I'm not sure if they would want that though, and I'm sure the US would want more authoritative control over these islands. So yeah, at this point now, if we take a look at the Caribbean, it's American as hell. Now, of course, I am coloring a little bit of international water here, but just to give you an idea of what the US owns at this point. Yeah, it's quite a lot. So yeah, we would have to also look at maritime borders to 100% get this right. I think Cuba owns, no, these are owned by France? Or is it Britain? I don't know. The only Caribbean islands they don't have are the ones down here, and the few ones that the British own, like around in here. I don't think the US would go after these just because, you know, Americans aren't good at geography. They'd probably end up invading one of their own allies, which at this point, I'm not sure if the Europeans are necessarily on the US's, you know, side. Of course, if they really wanted to, they could do a Western takeover of the world. I mean, that would be kind of difficult though, because you have China, India, and Russia against you, which is not, I mean, that's a pretty deadly matchup, so I don't know if they want to do that. Anyway, the US will now continue its imperialism down south into South America, now going after Venezuela. And this is actually a move that has the support of a lot of South American countries. Countries include Guyana, Suriname, and Brazil. Now, these guys will not be getting involved in this war because they don't want to seem affiliated with the US. But let's just say that the Brazil's opinion on the United States has changed, and they are now in support of the new regime. So, from Colombia, and with the help of Colombia, we have the invasion of Venezuela. This goes extremely well because Venezuela is an extremely impoverished country. They're not very strong. Their military is fraudulent, and they would not win. So, we can now take a look at this peace treaty where Colombia is going to get some land. Of course, not too much though, because Daddy USA needs to sell a puppet. So, the Venezuelans are made into a puppet of the United States. You know, they need their puppets, their little authoritative control over South America. Speaking of control over South America, Guyana just joined their alliance. I'm sure they did that willingly. No, they probably actually did because of the beef with Venezuela. But yeah, the US has now stated to South America that they are no longer expanding in South America, which is a great thing for South America, maybe not so much for the rest of the world, because that means the US is going global. That's right, they're going on a world tour. They're not just going to Europe and Australia, they're going everywhere. So South America, you guys are safe. They're totally not going to invade you. Feel relieved, but don't get too comfortable, you never know. Alrighty, Canada, no, just kidding. Western Sahara. Who owns Western Sahara? Well, the United States is about to. The dispute over Western Sahara in real life is too much for me to handle. I'm American. I don't understand these stupid little... What even is a border dispute? If you have a border dispute, just settle it, you know? Like the US and Mexico used to have a border dispute. Not anymore. Well, I mean, never mind. We're not going to talk about that anymore. The US invades Western Sahara. Of course, this is probably not to the liking of Morocco, but Morocco can eat a sock. I don't think I've ever said that before. But Morocco is now made into a puppet state of America, and they have themselves a foothold in Africa. They then decide to do some liberating, specifically into Mauritania. Now, I don't know anything about Mauritania at all. I don't even know the geography of this country other than desert over here. So we're going to assume that America would win. And then they would go on to invade Gambia, or that's not Gambia, Senegal, and then Gambia, maybe Guinea-Bissau as well. Might want to take back Liberia, probably not though. Sierra Leone, nah. What's this called? Again, this is just Guinea. And then you could probably go after the Ivory Coast, Ghana, Benin and Togo, Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, Namibia, Botswana. I'm just naming countries. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm flexing, okay? I learned Africa. Anyway, let's now finish off this map. Basically, if you can't tell already, the United States, if it were to choose to become an empire, it would do so without much restraint. And I think that Russia and China would probably try to intervene, but they wouldn't be able to because they wouldn't have an exact front line with the United States, meaning that the conventional war is not probable. Instead, a nuclear war is more probable, and we all know what happens if nuclear war breaks out, so let's not talk about that. All right, for the finale of this video, Canada is on the chopping block. Honestly, I don't think the US would invade its own allies at this point. Now, of course, they have invaded parts of Central America and the Caribbean, and they have a few allies scattered about there, so this video isn't realistic. None of my videos are. I think my main point now is that the US wouldn't do this, especially if they did do it though. I think my main point is that the United States would not form an empire in real life. I mean, they kind of have like a global police force, but that isn't necessarily an empire. And if they did do this in real life, they wouldn't go after Canada, is what I'm saying. But if they did, they would win. And they would win pretty quickly. US troops flood into... Now, hold on. Now, this could lead to the activation of CANZUK, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. But if we think about it, the UK isn't landing troops in the Americas. The US Navy is too much for the British Royal Navy to handle. So they're not landing troops. And honestly, it would probably just lead to them getting invaded instead. Now, that's not to say that landing American troops on the British Isles is any easier than landing British troops in the Americas, except it is. But the British Navy would be able to hold off for a long time. They held off Germany for a long time. I think they would, I mean, of course, the US isn't Germany, maybe in this timeline, but the US now is way stronger than Germany was then. Well, what I'm saying is the UK would be able to hold out for a few years, maybe not a year, maybe a year. I don't know, about a few years. Australia and New Zealand, they probably wouldn't be able to hold out at all. So we would know what would happen if Kanzuk was activated, and for the sake of their own countries, they decide not to activate Kanzuk, probably the smart thing to do. And unfortunately for Canada, that results in the bashing of their skull. They know a thing or two about bashing seals, though. It was seals, right? Sea lions? No, it was seals. I don't know, guys. I'm just trying to reference history memes or geography memes, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, Canada surrenders. They don't stand any chance at all. I mean, the population of California is already more than Canada, right? Yeah, 39 million in California. I think it's 50 million in Canada. Right. Oh, what? 38 million. This was as of 2021. And of course, California is losing population. Canada is probably gaining population. So I'm assuming that means Canada has more now. Anyway, those Canadians, they don't stand a chance. A few Canadian provinces are probably in support of this, like, was it Alberta? Yeah, Alberta, Saskatchewan, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, with the fall of Canada, we can go up and draw ourselves some new borders that everyone is going to love, right? All right, so in this piece still here, Canada is no longer existent. Honestly, Canada loses like 60, 70, 80% of its population in this case, and they probably don't function well as a country with no cities. So yeah, I mean, of course they have a few cities, but not many. And yeah, their population's gone, their economy's gone. Canada at this point might as well just be a US territory. But the United States gets all the valuable land of Canada, and then a few islands as well. They take some useless land up from Canada up here, probably for resource mining. And just to top it all off, they take Greenland. Yeah, Greenland, it's not a country, or is it? It's not a country, right? It's part of Denmark, but Denmark has to give it over because the US said so. At this point, the US has lost support of Europe. Europe no longer has any interest with the USA, and they're probably now moving over towards China, which means that China is probably becoming Big Daddy number 2 soon enough, if not already, meaning that we would have a world map where it's China versus USA. That would make for an interesting scenario, but not a scenario for this video because I've already done that before, but don't be surprised if you see it again soon. That's right. Mapping guys running out of mapping ideas. Who would have known? I've done everything in the past 3 years, and yeah, there's not much else to do. So that's why we're doing a lot of series. This usually would have been a what's it called, civilization starts over video, but I decided to give that one just a little bit of a break for a week. It's not going away, it's not performing badly, it's just taking a break from it. It's fine, we'll be back next video or the one after that. But yeah, so I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you did, make sure to show some support on it. You can do that by leaving a like or subscribing to the channel, since we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We have around a lot of subscribers to go, so get on it. Just kidding, you don't have to sub if you don't want to, but do check out the streaming channel where I'll be streaming tonight and tomorrow. Of course, by the time you're seeing this video, the Friday stream would have already been done with. I did Minecraft. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that if you did show up. Saturday stream, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I do plan on doing it with some friends, so that ought to be fun and entertaining if you do want to check that out. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. And of course, thank you to all the super fans, which include Matthew Newman, Yam, Kali Speaks Plays, Shadow Gamer Z, Deva Edits, Mr. Bonk 7, Hammer Toad 45, Patrick Clauser, Connor the Gamer, Texan Cowboy Cheese, Poland Country Ball, Yakko, Nevada Garbage Trucks, DW Cool Dude, Soviet Ball, and Serminator. Once again, thank you guys.